Good morning, welcome to CATEX-TV. My name is Frank Fortunato. This is a live broadcast from Princeton, New Jersey. Today is Friday, November 12th, 2010. It's 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time in the United States. It's 4:30 p.m. in London. In Mexico City, it's 10:30 a.m. If you need to reach us during the broadcast, you can phone in toll-free at 1-866-667-CATEX. Overseas, our AOL instant mail address is CATEX-TV. On this day, 9 years ago, an American Airlines A310, Airbus 310, taking off from John F. Kennedy International Airport in New York to Santo Domingo, crashed, losing the lives of all 210 people on board about a minute or so after takeoff. Also, if Neil Young was an American, he's not, he's a Canadian, but if he was an American, he's 65 years old today and would be able to start collecting Social Security. Who'd have thought it? Now to our main news. Well, Rolls-Royce, an Airbus executive, said this morning that Rolls has identified a faulting bearing box as the cause of the oil leak problem implicated in the mid-air disintegration of one of the engines on the Qantas A380. Airbus Chief Operating Officer John Leahy told reporters this morning that Rolls-Royce had at some point fixed the bearing box on newer versions of the Trent 900 engines. He said Rolls was now fixing it on older versions. His comments did not address why Rolls had not fixed the bearing box on older versions of the engine. It was an older version of the Trent 900 that was on the A380 that disintegrated after takeoff from Singapore. The box in question contains the metal ball bearings that allow movement of the drive shaft that spins the turbines inside the jet engines. Investigators have said that leaking oil caused a fire in the A380 Qantas engine. Leahy said that new models of the Trent 900 have been redesigned to eliminate the problem of excess oil causing turbine filters. He said that Rolls is now retrofitting the older versions with new parts to stop the oil leaks, and that computer software would shut down the engine with leaking oil before it was put at risk of disintegration. Well, you might wonder a little bit about the validity of the actions of computers after this next story. The Wall Street Journal is reporting this morning that Airbus is drafting a worldwide safety warning about electrical problems that can temporarily shut off primary cockpit displays and computer controls in its single-aisle jetliners. This is after an incident last summer involving a British Midland International A321. That incident occurred in August during a night flight from Khartoum, Sudan, to Beirut. It resulted in the twin-engine jet shuddering, banking steeply on its own, failing to respond to pilot commands over a period of several minutes. The event is important because for years safety investigators have been concerned about electrical system glitches on the Airbus resulting in dangerous shutdowns of flight control computers. Many safety experts believe that pilots should receive more training about how to respond to such rare but obviously serious in-flight hazards. Here's what happened. On August 24th, the British Midland A321, with 49 people aboard, was cruising peacefully at 36,000 feet over northern Sudan when it suffered a series of major electrical malfunctions. According to the British Air Accidents Investigation Branch, primary flight and navigation displays intermittently disappeared even as the crew was bombarded by a stream of warning messages about system faults. The report indicates that the pilots reported hearing a persistent chattering sound from circuit breaker panels. Cockpit screens continued to flicker, turning gray, and then went blank. Just as suddenly, the pilots later told investigators the displays briefly returned to normal. The wave of abnormalities continued for several minutes while the cockpit lights turned on and off by themselves. The situation became even more dangerous when the plane's computerized flight controls reverted to an unusual condition. The automatic thrust system became locked and the aircraft's left wing dropped without any input from the crew. The pilots eventually regained control of the plane about 20 miles off its course. There were no injuries and they manually landed the plane. Unbelievable. Now the A319, the A320, and the A321 planes are all going to be the subject of this Airbus alert. So it's going to be a little bit more to think about. Here's something else to think about. Boeing is blaming a fire aboard a Test 787 Dreamliner on a faulty power panel. They've said, quote, "We've determined that a failure in the P100 panel led to a fire involving an insulation blanket. Found under the passenger seats near the wings, the P100 panel is one of the plane's numerous power panels. It obtains power from the left engine and distributes it to a wide range of systems within the plane." Boeing said damage to the panel was significant, but noted that initial inspections did not show any extensive damage. According to Boeing, the backup systems engaged during the incident. The crew retained control of the plane at all times, but the company did not indicate when test flights of the 787 would resume. Is that plane delayed or what? Well, in South Korea, at least 10 people have been killed when a fire broke out at a nursing home in the southeastern city. The city of Pohang, about 370 kilometers southeast of Seoul. An early morning blaze occurred this morning. 17 people were injured and about 10 at least were killed. They were all patients between the ages of 71 and 90 who could either not move or be evacuated quickly enough. And in Myanmar, which if you're as old as I am, you know at Burma, an event of some significance might occur today. The Nobel Prize winner Aung San Suu Kyi might be released. Word is that Myanmar's ruling generals have signed a release order. Hundreds of her supporters are outside of her residence now in Rangoon, jailed under house arrest now for about 15 years. She's become a symbol for democracy in the country, but the country held its first elections in 20 years last Sunday in what the military junta, who controls the country, called a major step toward democracy. The junta ended up controlling both houses of the government. So now that they're in power officially via a democratic election, they feel it's safe to release her. Stock market's down about 64 points right now. We'll go to a word from our sponsors. Here's an interesting indication of what the future may hold. Catlin, who is now based in Bermuda, reported a 29% increase in gross written premiums by non-London underwriting hubs. They reported a 2% decrease in their London underwriting hub for the first 9 months of the year. They saw 43% of all of its premiums written outside London. CATEX said Catlin said that statistic indicates the opportunities for profitable growth available to Catlin as it pursues its expanding distribution outside the London market. Catlin noted that the fall in London gross premium written to $1.8 billion from $1.9 billion reflected competitive conditions for certain classes of business. Gross premium written in Bermuda was up 23%. In the U.S. was up 24%. And in Asia, Europe, and Canada, it was up 45%. In London, it was down 3%. Hardy's Underwriting, Lloyd's Syndicate, is saying that they have finally issued a best estimate ultimate net loss as a result of the recent New Zealand Christchurch earthquake, and that is less than $16 million US, although it noted that there remains considerable uncertainty. The company's reduced its net estimated loss as a result of the February Chilean quake to $27.5 million from $30 million. Its estimated losses as a result of 2 hailstorms in Melbourne and Perth, Australia remain unchanged. They're keeping that at $31 million. Hardy's noted also that in New Zealand they anticipate rate increases of 20% or more. There was no comment whatsoever on any planned move with Beazley syndicates. Our friend Imelda Powers, for many, many years, 19 years with Towers Parent and now Towers Watson, has been hired by Guy Carpenter as Managing Director of Global Analytics. Imelda will initially be based in New York, but will ultimately relocate to Beijing. Ms. Powers will be responsible for implementing strategies to enhance Carpenter's global analytical capabilities. Good luck to Imelda. Here's some news from State Farm. They're acknowledging the possibility of upcoming job losses after they've completed an internal assessment of 5 departments at its headquarters. State Farm's headquartered in Bloomington, Illinois. One of the possible outcomes will be, quote, a more centralized approach at the 5 departments. A spokesman said that we anticipate there could be a reduction in staffing levels, although it's too early to know what extent. State Farm has 66,000 employees in the U.S. and Canada, and they hope that any reductions could be accomplished through attrition. State Farm said that the last time they completed a major national restructuring, it was about 10 years ago, when they consolidated its 28 American regional offices into 13 zones. State Farm posted a profit of, State Farm posted a $777 million profit and boosted its net worth by 9%, up to over $58 billion last year. However, it should be noted that nationally in the U.S., employment in the P&C sector has dropped about 5.3% over the past 3 years. Well, in South Korea, the Group of 20 summit meeting is over. There's probably going to be a Group of 10 summit meeting that's starting now in Japan. That's the Pan-Asian Economic Group. President Obama is there, as well as President Wu of China, so that will probably keep going. But the meeting of the G20 claimed big progress in negotiations after agreeing to tackle global tensions and vulnerabilities. You tell me if this is big progress. In the communique issued this morning, the leaders endorsed tighter financial regulations to guard against what they call past excesses. They also agreed to set vague, indicative guidelines to reorient trade between surplus and deficit economies, but left those details to be discussed to the first half of next year. They were unable to reach a consensus on how to identify when global imbalances pose a threat to economic stability. They only committed themselves to a discussion of a range of indicators in the first 6 months next year. I don't think too terribly much happened. Well, our final story is a little bit of a tricky one. Here, of course, is the logo for Qantas Airlines. And if you are an aficionado of that movie Rain Man, you know that the character played by Dustin Hoffman was well aware of the fact that Qantas has never had a fatal injury in any of its flights. That's quite a feat, actually. The airline celebrated its 90th birthday, 90 years of anniversary, without one fatality last night. Look at the next picture. This, of course, is the A380. Qantas has 6 of these beasts. Up until 2 weeks ago, everything was fine with them. But it was with a dark sense of humor, perhaps, that this particular plane formed the centerpiece of the birthday dinner at Hangar 96 at Sydney Airport last night. There were 700 guests there. The plane wasn't going anywhere, as Qantas has grounded all 6 of them. The Australian comedian Adam Hills, who was the MC, said, "I didn't realize when I got here that the elephant in the room was actually going to be in the room." The company's management said that they had agonized over whether